has come to speak with us before, but we are so glad to have him back. And I'm going to let you do your own introduction if that's okay. He'll tell you a little bit of background about himself, but we are very grateful that he makes his journey all the way from central Iowa up here to spend the day with us. So thanks so much, Ty.
Thanks, Charlene. Well, hey, as Charlene said, thanks for coming out today. It's not exactly the best weather out there. The roads are a little bit dicey, and when I got here, I thought, oh golly, am I going to have 5 people or 10 people? But maybe we're going to have 50 people or so. But thanks for coming. Well, I've been up here for Eagle Days before, as she mentioned, and I have done shows that are just bald eagles in the past. I didn't want to repeat that because I know some of you have been here before. So I've got a new show that I put together called Raptors of the Midwest. And there are going to be eagles in it towards the end. But we're going to talk about a lot of other birds that not only nest here, but some that come down from the far north, from the Arctic during winter, and spend the time here. And if you feel so inclined to get out in the countryside before the winter's over, you can actually find some of these birds. But I'm going to start out by telling you a little bit about me, and then we'll get right into the show. And I'll encourage questions as we go, or questions at the end. So whatever works for you, just let me know. I want this to be a learning situation for everybody. Well, I do a lot of feature writing for the Iowa DNR, for Iowa Outdoors Magazine, if you take that. I've done work for the Iowa Magazine, Our Iowa, even some national magazines like Ducks Unlimited and the Nature Conservancy. But a few years ago, the Iowa Magazine people bought a textbook company, and they wanted to know of any of us that were writers if we wanted to do a book. And so in 2008, I did a book on Iowa's plants, mammals, birds, nature, and beauty within Iowa called Captured in Iowa Seasons. And that was successful. So in 2011, they wanted me to do another book. So bald eagles were really coming back in big numbers. So I did a book on bald eagles. Well, it went pretty well. So 2 years later, I did a book, a second edition of that book. And it is doing quite well as well. Everything you want to know about bald eagles is in here, a lot of pictures, along with a lot of science. By the way, I've got all these books up here, and they're for sale if you're interested. Afterwards, come on up and see me. My last book was Iowa's Wild Beauty. Again, lots of stuff from all 4 corners of the state and everywhere in between, just celebrating nature in Iowa. And I talk a little bit about where photos were taken, or what's going on in the picture. But let's talk about our birds of prey. We only have one vulture that nests in Iowa, or really is found in Iowa, and that's the turkey vulture. I like to throw this picture out because this was taken at my neighbor's place, and I gave him a copy of this because he's always hard on trespassers, and I said, maybe you need to, kind of send this out and let people know that they shouldn't trespass at the vultures waiting. But anyway, this is part of nature's cleanup crew, okay? They feed on carrion. They've always been around. We're told that they are doing even better than ever because of all the road kills. You see a big dark bird up ahead working on a roadkill at the edge of the road. Chances are it's these guys. And you see them gliding around in the summer. They're really V-shaped, kind of teetering back and forth. And that will be your turkey vultures. They do nest in Iowa. They'll nest in old barns, places like that. And they're doing pretty well. But let's talk about the owls. How many in here like owls? Any of the kids like owls? Okay, we're going to learn about owls right now. And the one small owl that we've got in Iowa is the eastern screech owl. And if he had his eyes closed, would you even see him sitting in that tree with that mouse? Probably not. Now, most of them are gray, but they do come in a red phase as well. And if you don't know what an eastern screech owl sounds like, let's see if we can get the kids' attention here. Has anybody heard this late at night? No. This is the eastern screech owl. Kind of a haunting, wild sound. He's a little owl. He's really no bigger than this bottle, and he just weighs a few ounces. And he just pretty much eats mice, other small rodents, maybe chipmunks. Neat little owl. Now we have two big owls in Iowa, and one is the barred owl. It's a large owl about this big, and it's got a really round head, and it can be distinguished by these big brown eyes. And they're a really round face and those dark brown eyes. And if you're wondering what it sounds like, I bet most of you have heard this owl at some time or another. You ever heard that owl that sounds like he's saying, "Who cooks for you?" You heard that one, right?
Yes.
They're fairly common. They're a big, big owl, and they aren't so scared as other owls are. Sometimes you can walk by one and see one 50 feet away, or drive up by one and they'll sit there really close and let you take a good look at them. And this is kind of what they look like in flight. Now the other large owl that we have in Iowa is the great horned owl, and this owl is really fierce, and he's really easy to tell from the barred owl, even if you see his silhouette, because he's really large. He's about this tall, and most of the time he's got those horns up, but not always. Here's one sitting in a barn window, giving me a nasty look, and he's got his horns down. But look at the difference between he and the barred owl. He's got these big, bright yellow eyes, and his coloration is different. Really, really fierce owl. Really big talons. He'll take everything from a pheasant to a rabbit or a mouse. He'll eat about anything. Here's one with a rabbit. Looks like he's just daring me to come and try and take it away. I don't think I would try that. They nest in different areas. Some will nest in old hawk's nests, like this owl here with the owlet, and some will nest in hollow trees. Now I climbed up to a nest in a hollow tree once, and there were all these prey animals stacked up for the little ones to eat. This one's got his head on a starling, and this long-tailed mouse is likely a deer mouse. And over in the corner, the old owl had a bunch of blackbirds all stacked up in a row like a kid's Lincoln log, 60 feet up. Just stockpiled. And in the next picture here, you can see the owlets are growing larger. Here's a pheasant leg. So they eat a little bit of everything. This nest was by a marsh, and there was the remains of a green-winged teal in the nest. So they were even picking ducks off. They're a fierce, fierce predator, that's for sure. When they get bigger and start to fly, they don't just take off out of the tree and fly way out in the distance. They'll hop from branch to branch and take small flights, 5 feet and then 10 feet. And they call them branchers. They actually have that nickname. And these guys are just big enough now that they're branchers. They're out on a branch of this old dead maple tree, hopping around, getting their balance, exercising their muscles, and getting ready to be adults. You can see they're sprouting their little horns. So they'll be adult great horned owls pretty soon. Here's one hooting, and that's what it looks like when he's hooting. He's got that white chest puffed out, and he sounds quite a bit different. Have you heard this owl? They're pretty common. Pretty common. Mating season starts in December and goes into January, and we live on an acreage, and we have this owl resident on our acreage, and boy is it hard to sleep at night when they're trying to find a mate. They're out there just hooting all night long. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Okay, here's the northern saw-whet owl, and this is a neat little owl. Has anybody ever been to one of Mike Havlick's presentations? He used to work at the Y Camp by Boone. He works for Dallas County now. He's a naturalist. He sings and plays a guitar. They should have him up here sometime. He's great. But he has a song called Big Owls Hoot and Little Owls Toot. Okay? And if you don't believe it, let's listen to this saw-whet owl. Big owls hoot, little owls toot. Toot, toot. You'd never believe that was an owl, would you, if you heard that outside? This is a northern owl. They come down from the far north, from Canada mainly, and they're down here in the winter because it's cold and icy. And you'll find them pretty much in cedar groves out in the wind. They'll be down here all winter. And I know they banned them down at Hitchcock Nature Center at Council Bluffs. They trap them and ban them. So this little owl is down here from the far north right now. And again, he's only about this big. He weighs about 90 grams as an adult, a big female, and that's just a few ounces. Probably about as much as this little remote weighs. Really tiny little owl. This one was sleeping on a branch when I woke him up. That's why he's so wide-eyed. Okay, here's another unusual owl. This is a long-eared owl. They come down from the north. It's a little bit bigger than the screech owl or the saw-whet owl. He's got really long wings, and he's really interesting. He's got these really exaggerated horns, and that's why they call him the long-eared owl. Beautiful facial discs, and those facial discs don't direct light into the eyes. They're directing sound to their ears. Some of these owls can find a mouse in the dark because they can hear it in the grass even if they can't see it. And these discs direct that sound right into their ears. We'll see a little bit more about that later. Here's a short-eared owl. This is an owl that's pretty much northern, but they're down here for the winter as well. I photographed some of these owls down at the Neil Smith Refuge east of Des Moines just a few years ago. It was a cold, windy day, kind of like today, and I was in the buffalo enclosure in Neil Smith. And I looked down, and this guy was just down there in the grass, out of the wind, and they come out right at sundown. Just as soon as that sun drops down and it starts to get dark, these guys come out and they fly really low, just 5 or 10 feet over the grasslands looking for mice. And they're down here in the winter. I've been up north of Winnipeg in Manitoba in the winter, and you'll see these guys occasionally if there's still not a lot of snow. Once it snows a lot up there, then they come down here. The short-eared owl. And this is what they look like in flight. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Okay, the barn owl is an owl that we used to have great numbers of, not great numbers of, but good numbers of 100 years ago or so when we had more grasslands. They really like to hunt grasslands. And most of our grasslands are gone now. In the southern part of the state, they're starting to graze more cattle, have more permanent grasslands, and barn owls are popping up again. There's been a couple dozen nests pop up in southern Iowa, like below Highway 34, down in that area. And you can see they're not a northern owl. Here's their area that they occupy, their range. That's the word I'm searching for. Beautiful, beautiful birds. Really gorgeously marked. And again, have these big facial discs that direct light, not light, but sound in their ears. And there was recently a program on Iowa Public Television about barn owls and how these direct the sound to their ears. They took one in a room like this that had no windows, and they put a mouse under some grass. They turned off all the lights, and he fluttered up and hung and dived down, and he got the mouse in pitch darkness. There was no light in the room. And again, it's from these discs directing the sound. And if you wonder about the ears, I've had the good fortune to photograph some birds that rehabilitators have. And this lady showed me the ears. Go back to feathers. And there's no external ear like we have. Just right at the back of the disc is where those ears are. Neat fingernail paint, huh? Okay, well here's a hawk owl from the far north. This is where these guys nest, up in the boreal forest. They don't usually come down here. If you want to go to northeast Minnesota, like the Boundary Waters, the Ely area in Minnesota, you'll find them sometimes. And I like to say the northern hawk owl kind of looks like you've slapped equal parts of a hawk and an owl together. Look at that head. It's kind of owl-like. But then he's got that long body, more like a forest hawk, what we call an accipiter. And they're really fast flyers like a hawk. Here's one, I was out of the vehicle and one flew by and he just kind of hung there and looked at me as he went by. Beautiful bird. Really fast flyer. Up north, they pretty much feed on a little mouse-like rodent called a meadow vole. They look like a mouse, but they've got a little short tail, only about an inch long. So if you do see some in southern Minnesota, or they do make it to Iowa, it's probably because the meadow vole population in Canada has really dropped. And they're coming down here because they're hungry. Here's one coming in for a mouse. Okay, here's the tallest owl in North America. He pretty much nests in this boreal forest area from Alaska down to the Great Lakes region as well. And he will come down sometimes to that Arrowhead region of northeast Minnesota at times. It's a great gray owl. This is a favorite of a lot of people. They are just stunning. And if you think he isn't built for cold weather, look at, he's got feathers clear down around even on his toes. Big yellow eyes. I call this photo the moment of truth. The moment of truth. Let's see if we can find the great gray owl and play back his sound. He is really different sounding. Really different from the other owls we've heard. Sometimes we will have a mass migration of great grays down here in the winter. And again, that's because they don't have a good food source up north. In 2005 that happened. I went up to northern Minnesota. I actually found 72 great grays in one day driving back roads. They'd all flown down from Canada trying to find food. Now, the snowy owl is an owl we've been getting, particularly in northern Iowa the last few years. We've been getting a few, and it's a gorgeous bird. Again, it nests way to the north. Clear up here in the north slope. Out on the flat Arctic tundra, out where the snow geese nest. And they pretty much winter down here, but depending on the winter and how much food or lack of food there is, how many young they produce, they can end up in the States and even pretty far south. But we usually get some in northern Iowa every year, and I think we've had a few show up so far. It's a beautiful bird. I think it's the heaviest owl in North America. Not as big as a great gray, but heavier. The females are darkly barred like this, particularly the young ones, and the males are almost snow white. And the juveniles are heavily barred. So most of the owls that show up down here are heavily barred because they're young. Beautiful, beautiful owl. When you see them fly, they're just really stunning. Even heavily feathered around their beak because they're really a bird of the far north. Okay, here's an owl of the west, the burrowing owl. He's only stands about as high as this bottle of water, and he doesn't weigh much, just a few ounces. They like prairie dog towns. That's why they call them the burrowing owl. Here you can see this guy is in a prairie dog town, and this is actually out in Colorado. Every once in a while we do get a record up in the northwest part of the state, like up in Lyon County. Some come in from South Dakota, but it's pretty rare. You usually need to go to central Nebraska on the west to see burrowing owls. They feed on a lot of small rodents, even some insects. And out west where there are cattle or where you have bison, they even feed on a big beetle that's prevalent around the bison or cattle herds, the dung beetle. They feed a lot on dung beetles. Cool little owl. This one is actually on a broken down sunflower. It's giving me the evil eye when I drove by. The burrowing owl. Now, raptors can't digest all the bone and everything they eat. They digest the soft tissue, and then they expel, they cough back up what they call a pellet. And sometimes if you walk around in cemeteries with conifers and look on the ground, you'll find a little pellet, 1.5 to 2 inches long, looks furry and all that. And this is a pellet that they've coughed up. And if you pull them apart, sometimes you'll find the remains of what they've been eating. And here you can see this pellet had the jaws of 2 different rodents in it, along with the leg bone. And I know a science teacher who likes to teach her kids all about raptors, and you can order owl pellets from some sort of organization, and at the end of the school year she gives each child an owl pellet. And they have their toothpicks and they put on the rubber gloves and they get to pick it apart. It's like opening a Christmas present. What's in here? What did he eat? And all these raptors expel these pellets. Well, leaving the owls, I'm going to go to the forest hawks. These are called the accipiters. And one of the smallest ones is the sharp-shinned hawk. He's a little hawk, again, not much bigger than a blue jay. Beautifully marked. Got this rust and white barring and a dark crown. And there you can see that barring a lot better, even under the underwing. And the adults will have a really dark red eye. And the juveniles have a vertically striped breast. They pretty much nest in the north also, and will come down and migrate through Iowa heading south in the fall. And that's when these photos were taken. This was taken down at Council Bluffs where we were trapping. And we had a pigeon there, and he's actually hovering over the pigeon that was used for bait. And I think he suddenly realized, hey, the pigeon's bigger than I am. So he didn't try and take a poke at him. He's just hovering, taking a look at him, having second thoughts. His larger cousin that looks almost like him, and is the bird that sits around maybe your bird feeder in your backyard and likes to ambush, is the Cooper's hawk. How many of you had a hawk in your backyard that will snipe birds? It's this guy, the Cooper's hawk. We live on an acreage, and a couple times I walked out, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm looking, and there's somebody sitting on the deck rail, and the feathers are just flying. And it'll be a Cooper's hawk. And sometimes he's got a cardinal, much to the chagrin of my wife. They really like mourning doves. Mourning doves have a lot more to eat, but they really do like your bird feeder birds. And they're doing very well, and they're moving into the cities, I think, because of that, and hanging around bird feeders. Just a lot like that sharp shin, only he's bigger, he's got a bulkier head. They're hard to see in flight. And here's one that's lit on the ground. And this is interesting because they molt and bring in new feathers every year. And they don't mold them all at once. But look at here, he's got 2 short tail feathers that are just growing in. And they're always across from one another. They never lose all on one side or anything, because then they can't fly correctly. So if they lose a feather on their right, if it's the 4th feather on the right of the tail, they lose the 4th feather on the left. So they're always in balance. And that's what this guy's doing. But look at it, beautifully feathered, clear down to his legs. Beautiful bird. Well, let's go on to the broader winged hawks. These are called the buteos. They include the red-tailed hawk and some others. The most common one is the broad-winged hawk. We don't get a lot of them migrating through here. Over on the Mississippi, you can be over there in late September and look up and you'll see a whirlpool of maybe 100 or 2 of these hawks just floating down over the Mississippi, riding the thermals that hit the bluffs. It's the same thing with the Missouri River. If you go down to the Luss Hills in the fall, the wind's coming out of the northwest, it hits those bluffs, and then it creates a wind shear. That's when the hawks are really moving, because they don't even have to flap, or they barely flap. They ride that free ride, that wind shear going south. Now, a bird of the river bottoms and the backwaters, pretty much an eastern Iowa bird, is the red-shouldered hawk. They will live right over water in some backwater areas like along the Mississippi. They'll eat everything from crawfish to frogs to rodents. They'll eat salamanders. They'll eat a lot of aquatic type prey. And they're a pretty bird. You can see his red shoulders. The largest hawk in North America is the ferruginous hawk. And he is another bird of the far north. Some do nest in South Dakota. They nest in the grasslands. But if you see one sitting out on an open field and you take a double take, you almost think it's an eagle. They're just really big. They're probably a good 4-pound, maybe 4-pound plus bird. And that's a big hawk, the biggest hawk in North America. And they love the grasslands. That's where you see them out in the open. And one way you can identify them, if you see one sitting and you're looking through good binoculars or scope, is they have this yellow smile line if they're looking right at you. And plus they have this just rusty red ferruginous shoulder. Now my favorite of the buteo group is another Arctic bird that comes way down from the north. Look where he nests, the rough-legged hawk. And they're down here now. I've seen them clear down around Des Moines this winter. And this is a beautiful hawk. One of the reasons I wanted to do this show is that if you want to see some of these Arctic birds, you want to go out and look around. They're down here now, and they'll be down here until into March and the weather clears, and then they'll start moving back up to their natal area. But this is a gorgeous bird. This is the male rough-legged hawk. You can see he's got these rough feathers on his legs. And the female is just drop-dead gorgeous. Got this chestnut color, and when you see her in flight, you see her in flight and you can see the underwings. It's like there's these big dark comets that are flashing with the white underwing. And look at that coloration. They're really, really a pretty bird. Another way you can tell a roughleg is if you see a tree like a cottonwood and a pretty big hawk lands in the very top on really tiny branches and has trouble teetering and getting its balance, but finally does. A red-tail won't do that. It'll be a roughleg. Roughlegs have little feet, and they can cling on to little branches. So if you see a big hawk in the very spindly branches of a little tree, it'll be a roughleg just about every time. A buteo from the west, from the Missouri River on west pretty much, is the Swainson's hawk. Really pretty hawk. This is a male. They're just gorgeous. They eat everything from grasshoppers to rodents pretty much. And they fly as far south and nest in Argentina, clear down there. Really nice flyer, just a handsome bird to see. And they're a little smaller than the red tail. And here's our number one large hawk, or buteo, and that's the red-tailed hawk. Anybody here subscribe to the DNR's Iowa Outdoors magazine? You do? Okay. This was the front cover last fall. You remember that? Okay. I write and photograph for them. We like that because I read an article on the hawk migration in fall, and I have a lot of these pictures in the magazine. And with the red-tailed hawk, here he's displaying, this adult is displaying all 12 namesake feathers. So we ran that on the front. Here's the underside of one. They come in two subspecies, the eastern species called borealis, and the western species are a little darker, more variable, and they're called calaris. So we have mostly the eastern here. When they come in, you ever seen a red tail hovering along the interstate or the highway, and all of a sudden, they fold those wings up and come in? This is what it looks like. It's called a scoop. And when we're sitting at the trapping station, you can have a beautiful October day, not a breath of wind, and you're sitting there about ready to go to sleep, and sometimes you get bushwhacked. All of a sudden you hear a and here's your red tail coming in after your bait. And this one snuck in on us and actually hit the pigeon. Usually we jerk the pigeon out of the way. This one got hit. They don't usually take it too hard. They get nicked up a little bit, but we're able to separate the two before the pigeon is harmed. too bad. I photographed a red-tailed nest one spring down around Earlham, just west of Des Moines. They're good parents. They bring in everything from snakes to chipmunks to even toads. And I told a herpetologist that these red tails are feeding toads because toads, when they're threatened, they will exude a nasty secretion, and most animals won't touch them. So I told this herpetologist, I said, you know that red tails will feed toads to their young ones? And he says, no, they won't. I said, yeah, they will. No, they won't. They secrete that solution. And I said, I've got the photos. So he was like, wow, can't believe that. I guess if they're hungry and they can get it down, they will eat them. Beautiful bird, real common. They nest all over Iowa. We see them all summer. There's one coming in low over the water, missing a tail feather. Beautiful bird. This is a common bird you most often see along the roadside that's sitting there about this tall. A big female will weigh 3 pounds. That's a big female red tail. Now, another bird we've got down here now during the winter is the northern harrier. And it's interesting because it has these facial discs a little bit like an owl. Okay? When I was a kid, we used to have a nickname for him, a marsh hawk. How many of you remember that nickname? Marsh hawk. Yeah, for the northern harriers. This is a female, brown and white stripe. And this is a male. The males are gray. They glide low over the ground, a lot like that short-eared owl. And I was out at the edge of a marsh photographing waterfowl in the spring. And all of a sudden I looked up and here they come right by. They didn't see me until they were right on me. And that's the fun thing about wildlife photography is that sometimes you don't get what you go after, but you get something different that you didn't have before, so it works out really good. And here's a female in the winter finishing off the remains of a pheasant. I don't know if she killed it or not. It was just along the road, and she was finishing it off. Okay, let's talk about the speedsters, the falcons, okay? Our smallest falcon in Iowa and in America is the kestrel. We used to call them the sparrowhawk. Their numbers are going down. I'm not sure why. This is a pretty little male. And this was taken just on the north side of Omaha, Fort Calhoun. I pulled over to the side of the road. There was a big female rough-legged that had been using a perch. I shut my truck off. I thought maybe she'd come back, but instead, right across the road from me to the cameraman back here, she lit on a little weed or branch. And so I trained the camera on him, and I noticed he was watching something, so I had the motor drive on high, ready to go, and off he went. I got one of him leaving, and then he did a tight circle, come around, got one of him coming back, and he hovered for a second, and bam, he goes down and comes back up, and he's got probably a deer mouse, big long tail on it. And he's finishing that deer mouse. So again, was looking for one thing, didn't get it, but got a different bird that came in instead. Beautiful bird. Little American kestrel, sparrowhawk. Okay, getting up and a little bit larger in size in falcons is the merlin. This is another bird of the far north. These guys are down here now. So if you want to go out and look around, these guys, instead of being up here, they're down here, and you can see western Iowa. They come down here. Now, one way you can find a merlin is that if you find a cornfield that's been chiseled or something in the fall and you've got some stalks sticking up, you see a little falcon flying across the cornfield and he lands on a corn stalk, it'll be a merlin. They will do that. They're from the far north. They're used to landing on the ground or on low vegetation, and so they'll land on corn stalks. And they're a cool little bird. They love to harass eagles. Sometimes if you see an eagle flying south through the Les Hills, and you see a little falcon dive bombing it, kind of like a jet fighter going after an airliner, it's this guy. They just harass the heck out of bald eagles. They love it. Getting a little bit bigger in size again, we have another falcon called the Prairie falcon. They pretty much winter down here, but you do see some here. Last year, a year ago this time, I saw one right here at Neil Smith Refuge. So that was getting pretty much out of their range, although it's widely known that they don't stick really hard to this range, that they will trickle out in small numbers out to the side. It's a little bit bigger. One way you can tell it is it's got this mustache, and they're a really fast flyer. And here's a close-up of a rehab bird. Really good looks at his mustache. And if you see him flying, his underwings right here close to his, what we would call the armpits, these are his axillaries. They're real dark. So if you see a falcon flying pretty fast, you just know it's not the peregrine falcon I'm going to show you next. But it's got the dark wings right here close to his body, these wing feathers. Then it'll be this bird. And he also has that mustache too. Now I want to show you another trait that all falcons have. Let's look at his nostrils. See in his nostrils there, he's got little cones. Now these guys can dive at up to 200 miles an hour. And that creates a problem with the airflow. It could either be too much air coming in so he can't breathe, or he can't get enough. And scientists think they've evolved these little cones in the nostrils, you can just see the tips of them, to regulate that airflow. So it's amazing what nature has done to outfit these creatures. Now, some think that this bird is the fastest on the planet. They're found all over. Everywhere you see this light yellow, South America, Africa, Australia, and here. And this is a peregrine. They were really in trouble in the 1960s. DDT really did a number on them. DDT, I'm sure you all know, caused a lot of birds of prey to take up that DDT through animals that they fed on in the food chain. And then they laid eggs with really soft shells, and when they sat on them and moved around a little bit, then the eggs would break. So now we outlaw DDT in this country, although we still make it. Sadly, we sell it overseas. We sell it in South America. So some of this are birds that migrate to the south. When they come back in the spring, biologists have captured them and done blood samples, and they have DDT in their blood because they're picking it up in Central America. But this is a big falcon, and they can dive at speeds of up to 200 miles an hour. They've really been reestablished. They're up in the bluffs there of the Mississippi now, and elsewhere around the state, Minnesota and other states. And they've really come back nicely, particularly in the west. Now, this is the largest falcon in North America, the gyr. And again, he nests way up in here, pretty much on the cliffs. He's built like the peregrine, but he's a little bit bigger, and generally they come in this color. Now this is a bird that a falconer owns out around Boulder, Colorado, that I know. And when I went out to see Greg, there were 2 or 3 of us there, and once somebody said something about the peregrine being the fastest falcon, and he says, oh no. He said, it's the gyr. And of course, a couple of us said, well, we always see everything on TV and everything, it's a peregrine. And he says, I have both, I've flown both for 20 years, I'm telling you it's the gyr. So anyway, I've told a couple other bird rehabbers and scientists that, and what they always say as a scientist is, I want to see the data. Has anybody caught them? But I will say that the Arabs, who are big falconers, have flown this bird, and they will let a bird go, and then they'll drive in a car down the highway, and they will hold a lure out the window. Greg was telling me they've clocked this bird on the flat, flying alongside a car at 112 miles an hour. That's not in a dive, that's just in the flat. So that's really fast. And he's a falconer, and he let a pheasant go. I didn't know he was going to do that, and pow. This is what falconers do. They train these birds, take them out hunting, and they flush a pheasant or a duck, and that's their sport. In fact, the peregrine has the nickname duck hawk, because they will swoop over a flock of ducks, and if they can get one to jump up and fly, then they come down and pow. They take it. Notice this bird's missing a feather in each wing. He's got balance. Probably molting, hasn't molded those feathers in. Now, this also is a gyre. This is the Greenland race. Now, why would you think this gyre in Greenland would be mostly white? Anybody? Very good. The young lady in the front row knew, because it's snowing. Greenland is covered in ice and snow, and they have cliffs around the edge. So this gyre has evolved to be this color to blend with the ice and the snow. Pretty special. Beautiful, beautiful bird. To me, this is about the handsomest of all the raptors, if I had to feel like. Well, I'm not going to talk too much about osprey. We don't have many of those in Iowa, but they have been reintroduced by the DNR. I think up at Spirit Lake, I know at Sailorville Lake, Red Rock, and some other places, and they're coming back. They're real common up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Canada. And in the fall, you will see them migrating through. They'll come down the Missouri River or some of the other river systems. And they dive and eat fish. This is a bird that plunges in and will go clear underwater and grab the fish and then come up, and they got long wings, and then they're able to catapult back off the water. Okay, I bet you didn't think we were ever going to get to eagles, did you? Well, we're going to start not with the bald eagle, but with the largest eagle in North America, which is the golden. The golden's about 1 pound heavier. And they're really different than the bald. The bald is one of 4 fish eagles on the planet. Although I think we all know, we've seen bald eagles enough that they'll scavenge dead pigs in a field, the confinement operators thrown out. They pick up roadkills. I've even had people tell me they've seen them take a squirrel out of the yard. But pretty much the bald eagle likes fish. That's his number one if he can get it. But the golden eagle's different. He's a hunter. He's more like the hawk and the falcon. And they're really tough. Biologist in northeast Iowa, Terry Hainfield, told me one time, I wrote an article on golden eagles. And he told me he was turkey hunting in the bluffs along the Mississippi. And he said, I'm in my blind, I got this rubber turkey decoy out front, like from me to the back corner. And all of a sudden, boom, just like that, over the bluff top, really low, comes a golden. And he said the golden sets his wings, comes in to dive, and he said, I thought, oh no. Well, you guessed it, the golden hits the turkey decoy, the rubber decoy. He embeds his talons, he can't let go, and he says the golden and the turkey are rolling down the hill. And finally, on his side, he shakes, and finally he's able to shake the decoy. But they are fierce. This bird is also found around the globe, in Europe, Russia, Mongolia. You've probably seen that a little bit of press about the eagle hunters in Mongolia that use these. They hunt from horseback, and they have a golden on their arm. In fact, there was a movie. Did anybody see The Eagle Huntress? There's a movie about a Mongolian girl. I got to tell this story real quick. These Mongolians, for who knows, thousands of years, they've hunted from horseback with their golden eagles. And they have a contest. And, who can release the golden and it can get the bait in the fastest time. So there's a young Mongolian girl that wanted to raise her own golden eagle. And her dad didn't want her to do it, but he finally relented. So they climb up on a cliff, and he lowers this 13-year-old girl down on a rope, and she gets the golden, puts it in a bag. They take it home, and they raise it to an adult, and she trains it, and that's her eagle. So then they have the National Golden Eagle Contest in Mongolia, and she wants to enter. So all the old guys that have eagles are going, what's this 13-year-old girl doing with the golden eagle in this contest? Well, this is pretty neat because she won the national championship and she halved the time. She halved it. Her eagle just whoop, boom, like that. So anyway, they made an eagle, a golden eagle movie called The Eagle Huntress. And we saw it. It was playing down in Des Moines. It was pretty neat. It was all about her. They went to Mongolia and filmed her and her parents and all that. But this is a fierce bird. I mean, they will take baby antelope. They've been known sometimes to take full-grown antelope. They love jackrabbits. Out in Wyoming, I know in the 1960s there was a guy who was from Garner, Iowa, graduated from Iowa State, ended up being a predator control guy in Wyoming. And all one fall and winter, he trapped golden eagles, live trapped them because they were killing lambs. One spring, they were killing lambs. So they are a tough, tough predator. A little bit different than the bald. The bald, if you see him gliding, his wings are as flat as a table here. The golden will be slightly V. The young goldens will have a little white under the tail and some other features. Goldens will glide in a tighter circle. There's 3 or 4 things that if you practice, you can look at a first-year bald eagle, which is brown, and a golden, and you can tell the difference. Now, I was telling Charlene, I go out to South Dakota in the winter sometimes where some of the farmers have a lot of pheasants, and the goldens come down there and stay in the winter, and the pheasants come right up into the barnyards. So the farmers are going in and out. So what happens? The goldens get tamed. Farmer never hurts it. The farmer's going in and out every day. So I pulled right up, and this guy was sitting on a windmill. I just got out of the car, and from here to the back of the room, and took the picture and got back in the car. Now, you wouldn't find that with a golden eagle about anywhere else in the country. You would get 100 yards away and they would fly. But it's really funny because they're quite tame there in South Dakota, living around those farmsteads. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Like I say, a little bit bigger than the bald eagle. And that gets us to our national bird that I'm going to end up with. A little bit about the bald eagle, a little history. In 1907, we had our last nest, okay? And we went 70 years until 77 until we had another nest. Okay, what do you think caused the demise of the bald eagle? Anybody?
They probably killed them.
You're right. She says they probably killed them. Most people say DDT. DDT played a big part in the demise of the bald eagle. But does anybody know when and why DDT was created? It was created during World War II. Why? Because we had troops in the tropics, and in the tropics you have mosquitoes that carry malaria. And the government went to the chemical companies in the 1940s and said, you know, we lose guys in war, but we don't even die of malaria. Create something we can spray and kill these mosquitoes with. So the chemical companies created DDT. So it wasn't until like 1945 DDT started being the chemical of choice. If you're milking cows, you're out there with your spray can spraying DDT. I did that as a little kid. I thought it was a neat deal. Dad would be milking cows, and we were walking along, a big cloud of that coming out. Nobody knew any better. But it created the soft eggshell situation and was a problem. But again, we lost most of our eagles by 1907, and like she said, we, one way or the other, killed most of them. We logged all of the big trees in the country. And then back in the pioneer days, if you had a coyote that was taking your chickens, or a fox, or a bald eagle, you got rid of it, okay? Because we thought our resources were endless. I mean, that was just the mindset back then. You had to survive and make a living. But this is the bald eagle doing what he does best. This is probably what it looks like from a fish's viewpoint when he's about to get plucked. Big, beautiful bird. They weigh 9 to 14 pounds. Females being largest, which is true of all raptors. They generally mate for life. If they lose a mate, they'll choose another one. They generally have 2 youngsters, sometimes only 1, sometimes 3. Now, the Iowa DNR keeps statistics on our bald eagles, And the average young that fledge per nest is 1.7, okay? Now, I told you all the bad news about eagles. They disappeared in 1907. We didn't have our first nest again until 77. Now let's talk about the good news. The good news is we have them nesting in all 99 counties now. We created the Endangered Species Act in 73, and we outlawed DDT. Between those two things, so they're nesting in all 99 counties, and for the last year of statistics I saw in the number of young hatched in Iowa, how many bald eagles do you think were raised in Iowa last year and left the nest to become adults?
2 million.
It amazed me, 489. We went from our first nest in 77, we had 489 youngsters come out of nests from all 99 counties. So what a success story. Now, they're not beyond criticism. I was on a radio show in Des Moines, WHO, talking about bald eagles, and it was a call-in show, and a guy called in, and he was madder than a hornet. He said, I have free-range ducks, geese, and chickens, and the eagles are taking them. And, I'm just tired of these eagles. We got to do something, so on and so forth. And I said, well, here's the deal. I was raised on a farm, and we had all those fowl. And if you've got a honey hole where a coyote can come in, or a fox can come in, or a great horned owl, or a bald eagle, any predator is going to be drawn to that free lunch, to that honey hole. So you just have to do something to protect them, don't let them out till the middle of the day, put some devices out to scare them away, something. If it's not going to be these guys, it's going to be coyotes, or it's going to be fox or something, because they are opportunists. Every predator never knows when it's going to get its next meal. They just never know. Now these guys live to be really old. How old do you think they live to be? Any of you kids? Yeah?
20.
20. That's a good guess. They used to say 30. But last fall they found a dead bald eagle in New England, and it had a band on its leg. And it had been taken from a nest in northern Minnesota years and years ago when there weren't many bald eagles. And they released him to become an adult in New England, and so he spent the rest of his life there. So anyway, they picked this eagle up, they ran the number on the band, because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service puts a number on the band, and he was 38. Yeah, 38 years old. So they do live a long, long time. Neat bird. This is your typical adult. White head, white tail, yellow beak, and yellow eye. And the first year youngsters will be chocolate brown. They'll look a lot like that golden eagle. Quite a bit like them. This is what they like to do best. They like fish. Now, I talked a little bit about hatching nearly 500 young eagles, and that we've got them in all 99 counties. But the other thing is, they do a bald eagle survey in January every year. The DNR coordinates, and I know Charlene said they participated here, all over the state. And they had, this was like early January, so it was still warm yet, and they had about 3,000 eagles. So when it gets really cold, a lot of eagles are coming down from Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Canada because it freezes up, and this is what they want to eat. So they come down here, and they're hanging out in Lenora spillways, or wherever there's open water, like in the Mississippi, Red Rock Dam and the Des Moines, Saylorville Dam, Cedar River and Cedar Rapids, and up and down the Missouri River to get fish. Now, most of the time, and this is about as big as a fish you will see them take in the winter, because it's usually one species. It's a little fish called a gizzard shad. A lot of people use them for cut bait if you're a fisherman. They're a native fish. This is at the northern part of the range, and when that really cold weather hits in late December, January, some of these gizzard shad can't take it. They come to the surface, the cold weather is killing them, and they're up there gasping their last because there's an oxygen-rich layer at the surface of the water. And pow, it makes easy food for the eagles. So this is the #1 fish. I photographed hundreds of photos of eagles with fish in the winter. I've got 1 walleye shot and 2 crappie shots. Everything else has been gizzard shad. So this is the #1 fish, just to let you know kind of what they're going for. Now during the summer, those that are nest here, they're going to take all kinds of stuff. I photographed a nest one year, and it was on the Middle Raccoon River. It was really rainy that spring. The water was just chocolate brown, and they couldn't catch any fish for about a week, but they were bringing in leopard frogs, bullfrogs, soft-shelled turtles, painted turtles, anything that could crawl out. So they're really good opportunists. They will improvise to feed their young. I was really surprised to see the eagle come in with a turtle, but it works. This is one with a band on, like that one I was telling you about they found in New England. They put a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service band on their leg. He's got a fish. And this is a photo taken at SOAR, Save Our Avian Resources, over by Dedham. Kay Newman runs that rehabilitation facility. And this is a bird she brings to Eagle Day events in schools, and its name is Spirit. I went over there to her facility to photograph this bird, and Spirit just kind of told me off, and that's what I got. Okay, that's it. How about some questions? You had some good ones so far. Let's have some more questions. Yes, ma'am.
This goes back to the turkey vultures. I live down in Peterson, and in the summer, fall, they just hang over town. Have ruined a lot of big pine trees in town.
Really? With your droppings?
They just perch in them every night and, break the branches down and droppings.
They can be a problem.
How do you get rid of them? How do you discourage that?
I think noisemakers and things like that, they had the problem in Marshalltown too. They were nesting in the water tower, or nesting, but roosting there. They had all these droppings. I think they used some kind of firecracker like noisemakers or something to disperse them. But yeah, they can. I think you had your hand up first.
When I go to Duck Creek, sometimes to camp up there with my grandma, I've seen tons of turkey vultures go circling around nearby it.
Yeah, turkey vultures, again, are opportunists. They've got really good eyesight. All of these raptors have good eyesight, way better than we do. And they just cruise up there and they look for something to eat. And that's when they come down. If you see a group of them circling, there might be a dead deer that got hit by a car and then ran off and died, and they're circling and going to come down and eat that deer. How about you, young lady? Pardon?
Do eagles have any predators?
Okay, she's got a question. Do eagles have any predators? I think just us. I think we're the only thing that's ever really bothered them to any degree. They nest really high in trees. They're really fierce. If any of you have watched any of the Decorah film, have any of you watched that? I saw some of that last weekend. This mother eagle's on the nest and there's snow on her back. She's hunkled down and all of a sudden you see 2 paws come up and a raccoon's head come up. She, wham! It's like that and the raccoon was gone. So they're really fierce defenders of their young. And there's usually always one at the nest. So nothing much bothers them. They do really well. Good question. Yeah? Do they what?
What do they sound like?
Oh, let's see if I can pull up. He wants to know what an eagle sounds like. Let's see if we can pull that up. We should be able to do that. That shouldn't take too long. Let's see if we can find him. eagles. Let's look under bald. See if we find him. I'm not sure how he's listed. Not finding him. I'm going to look by shape and see if I see him. Let's see if we can find him. I'm not sure how he's listed. I'm sorry, I can't find him to play back the recording. Okay, any more questions? Yep.
The turkey vultures and such, do they smell? Do they have an olfactory?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most birds don't have a sense of smell, we're told, but turkey vultures do. A few years ago, there was, I'm not sure what it was. It was some sort of a rodent that went in one of our bushes out front. We had a spirea bush. And I was mowing and I saw it kind of laying under the spirea bush dead, and I could smell it a little bit. It was a big mouse or something like that. And so I went inside the house, and pretty soon, all of a sudden, there's a turkey vulture in the yard. And this mouse is clear under the bush, no way you could see him. And he walked all the way around the bush, craning his head. And so he had to smell him from way up in the sky. They can smell, have a terrific sense of smell. Yeah. Yes?
Can you tell a golden eagle from a young bald eagle?
Yeah, you can tell a golden eagle from a young bald eagle. Again, the golden eagles, when they circle much tighter circles than the bald eagle. And the bald eagles, when they will flap and they'll glide. And when they glide, their wings are flat as can be. A golden eagle will do the same thing, and when he glides, his wings are what they call dihedral. They're slightly V'd. That's a dead giveaway. Right there. Yep. Okay, anyone else? Charlene, we ready to wrap it up? Again, if anybody wants to look at any of my books or note cards, come on up. I'm hanging around for a while. Thanks for coming out on this cold day with roads that are kind of dicey. Appreciate it.